So, my 24 male, 3-year relationship just ended. Never thought that would happen, but it turned out my ex, 24 female, was a hoe. Cheating with like a whole squad of old dudes. How this all started was that my ex used to live next door. Our families were really close, so we used to bump into each other all the time. But out of nowhere, she suddenly drops the bomb that she likes me. And before you know what's happening, we're dating. Things were going great at first. She was this young piano teacher and hustling to buy me gifts with her paychecks. I was really smitten and treated her like she was the most precious thing in my life. I treated her like she was a queen. Long distance made things difficult, but we made our relationship work with late night texts and all that. It felt like we were killing it. Then, since early this year, things started getting weird. We were in the 3rd year of our relationship. I was going to graduate and she stopped showing up. No more gifts, nothing. Just distance. She started giving me all sorts of excuses, making me suspect she was cheating, but there was no proof of this as she was living far away. So I asked a friend of mine back home to keep a close watch on her, and it wasn't long before he got back to me. He was seeing her a lot with other dudes. Old dudes. Like what? I confronted her about what she was doing, and she played it off like it was a joke. She claimed the old men were just students in her senior piano class, which she recently started. She sweet-talked me and tried to be coy as if we hadn't been growing distant for months, but something still felt off. Then one terribly bad Sunday, my homie drops a huge bomb. An Instapic of her with an old man. I called her out, and finally, she straight up confessed to cheating on me with a bunch of older guys. I was devastated. To her, she could no longer cope with the long distance, and she slowly lost feelings for me when she met more capable guys nearby. Old guys. Well, after that, I hung up on her. Took a couple of weeks to get over her, but I'm getting there. My graduation was a few days ago, and she came with her family. We didn't talk, and I guess our parents noticed the tension between us. It was very awkward while we tried avoiding each other. I'm still a bit shaken. Why was she there? We were well and truly over. I'm not gonna lie and say I'm fine. I'm not. Now, I'm trying to figure out this new chapter. Anyone else been through a similar heartbreak and overcame it? Update. So, I saw my ex again at this hotel lobby in my hometown last week. It's been like 8 months since we broke up. She was with this older man who looked loaded. I acted cool like we were just old friends, but I could tell she was a bit uncomfortable and a bit starstruck. I gotta admit, I do look nice. I cleaned up nicely since the breakup. Hit the gym, started at a full-time position at the job I was interning at, and I'm doing good with a lady love. She's been texting since then, saying we should hang out sometime. Don't want my new lady to think I'm cheating. With my ex, for that matter. So I'm leaving her on red. Not gonna lie, it's pretty interesting to read her BS. Things are going pretty well, and it makes me so happy that my relationship with my ex didn't end up working out. Story 2. My infidelity story. Long read. I, 33 male, and my 32 female are 8 years past D-Day. I've been lurking here for quite some time, so I'm aware of all the mistakes I made. On D-Day, I was getting the laundry together, and I found a note in there detailing all the answers the psychic gave her to her relationship questions. Basically, if she should stay with me or be with the AP. I guess there were other things that happened before D-Day too, like when I found her carrying condoms in her purse or found 2 hidden in her car. Then it was 1. Pictures on her phone that she took for me but didn't send, spending hours in the bedroom by herself. I even remember hearing her on the phone a few times, but she would always say it was her mom or sister. But the note was the first time he had a name. I immediately left, and this is where the story should end. 3 weeks go by and we start talking again. She answers my questions, but there was constantly something wrong and not adding up about her explanations. After a few conversations, she admits she had sex with the guy while we were broken up. I was devastated, and again, I should have just walked away, especially when the only thing that truly added up about her story was that she had sex with the guy. I ultimately decided to stay. I recognized incorrectly that because my life was not in a good place, that I should accept what happened and what she told me, because there were a lot of things within myself that I needed to work on. The time we spent apart was the springboard I needed to grow up. Things got better between us for the next few years. I had full access to her phone, which I checked frequently at first, less as time went on, and 4 years ago we got married. It wasn't perfect, and it never is, but it felt like we were working towards a life, and I can say I started to trust her again. Sometime around July 18, we took a drive through an area we want to build that life in. I remember getting back that day and being really excited about buying a home and starting a family together. I immediately grabbed my computer and started trying to put all our finances in a spreadsheet and really try to nail down how much we could afford and make a budget. I got to the end and asked to see her student loans. You don't need to see loans, you just need to see how much I pay. There are many fights and screaming matches that end with me saying, "We will never buy a house together or leave this apartment for another if I don't see her loans." Several tense months later, I get tired of waiting for her and pull a year of bank statements from our joint account. Realized that she was defaulting on her debt and only paying one larger payment for the entire year. There was a ton of fighting, mostly about whether what she did counted as lying or not. As if completely omitting defaulting on your debt when directly asked about it could be anything other than lying. I couldn't put my finger on why, but I was becoming obsessed with her cheating again. It's sort of easy to see in hindsight that the trickle truth and gaslighting tactics were the same. We have a completely dead bedroom from February through August. Finally, when we sit down and talk, she makes a few admissions from before. The first one was that she would tell me she was going one place and go see AP, but nothing happened until I left. Still didn't add up. There were 2 condoms in the car and then 1. All of that was before I left. In the last few months, we've had the conversation a few more times. Finally, she admits that it still only happened once, but was before I left. There's clearly a ton she isn't telling me, and she won't tell me because I can't prove that I know it already. I don't see how recovery is ever going to be possible like this, but we start MC this week, so I guess we'll see what comes of it. In August, in the first wave of talks, she changed the password to her phone. Her reasoning was that she deserved to have her own private conversations, especially with everything going on. She wants to freely vent to her mom and sister without me seeing. This made me pretty crazy because I really kept myself sane by being able to snoop around and confirm she wasn't cheating. A couple weeks ago, we agreed to exchange passwords and phones on the spot. There were some hurtful conversations with her family, but nothing terrible. Of course, she immediately starts sleeping with her phone under her pillow and says if I want to check, I can ask first. I thought it looked shady and said so, but I didn't exactly care to look either. I know that she knows I have the password, so I know that she will carefully delete anything she doesn't want me to see. I had an opportunity to look last night, so I took it. She installed Snapchat. The only person she follows is her sister. Her Snap score was 0, so I think that means she hasn't used it. Her fucking AP is top of the quick add list. Haven't talked to her about this yet, but I'm obviously upset. Update. I wrote a post a long time ago venting about my wife and my suspicions of her cheating on me. Honestly, I don't really remember and I don't want to reread it either. I originally planned on writing multiple posts, but the day after my first post, my wife made a few comments that made it very clear that she knew about my Reddit account and had read my post. I decided at that point not to make any updates, until now. Before we even got to marriage counseling, she admitted that she slept with that guy before we broke up, but only one time. Obvious lie is obvious. We went to exactly 3 marriage counseling sessions. During the 3rd session, I finally let it out and demanded my answers. It was 30 minutes of lying, followed by a huge admission of sex 1 time before I moved out and 2 times after. But for some reason, she insisted she never kissed him. Even went as far as throwing a small tantrum about his complex about kissing. Then it went into her accusing the marriage counselor of conspiring against her. It wasn't a big deal. She wasn't lying anymore. The marriage counselor stopped everything with 10 minutes left in our hour and terminated our counseling on the spot. My wife was recommended to an IOP, and I stayed on with the counselor as my individual therapist. Not all counselors are bad. Some are really good. And I got a really good one. The next few months were eventful, but I can sum it up quickly. I got the fuck out of there, hired a lawyer, went no contact, and started working on myself. There's a lot of other things along the way that I had to deal with, and some that I'm still dealing with. I still deal with things like wanting to know what actually happened. I was really hung up on that for a while, but it's mostly past now. I really want to thank everyone that took the time to reply the first time. I needed to hear the obvious. I'm really glad to see you got out of that situation. Reading your post, it's clear that your wife never truly owned up to what she did, and the constant trickle-truthing and gaslighting would have driven anyone insane. It's like she was doing just enough to keep you around, but never enough to actually rebuild trust or work on the marriage. The fact that the marriage counselor even terminated the sessions says a lot. Sometimes when someone is that deep in denial or lying, there's just no way forward. It's sad, but it sounds like you made the right choice by moving on and focusing on yourself. The curiosity about what really happened is totally normal, but honestly, knowing the full truth likely won't change much. What matters is that you're no longer stuck in a relationship filled with deceit and distrust. All the best in your journey ahead. Now for some comments. Dude, you will never find out what really happened. She has no reason to admit it now, and you can't control that. Just let it go. Let go of the one who caused you pain. It's a heavy burden to carry, and you only impede your own future happiness. For what it's worth, and as a total internet stranger, based upon what you've written so far, I agree with you. You've done what you could to save yourself. You're very lucky you never had children with her. I hope disillusion went with a minimum of difficulty. That's a great story about the therapist. Wish more of them were more assertive. Too much of trying to get everybody to understand each other. Glad you're on the fast track to healing. Thanks for the update.